where do you predict marketing changing the most over the next 2 years? What do you think are strategies that are going to be dropped off or falling behind? And where do you think people will invest more of their time over the next 2 years?
What we're seeing right now is a huge automation in creative and campaigns where people are setting it up and you have AI changing the headlines, changing creative, Well, if everyone's doing that, then everything's going to look the same. So make sure that you have a human be the first touch point and the last touch point whenever possible.
I feel like authenticity is going to be more important than I think Gen Z is really big on it right now. So I think, again, it goes back to reviews. What other people are saying about your brand is going to become increasingly important.
Brands need to become better than the average of averages. So how LLMs work, right? They crawl the web, they aggregate all the information, they create the average. They always spit out the average response, right? Because it's stochastic. They're crawling their information, spitting out what you would like to hear, and they're giving you that average.
Welcome to SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Koa Kauwe. This is brought to you by Stan Ventures. AI search is evolving quickly, but the business case is still a little blurry. Brands are investing in GEO strategies, AI visibility platforms, PR, content, backlinks, authority building, and agencies are creating new services around it. Clients are asking what they should be doing right now, sometimes even to their AI tools, but attribution still is a little messy. The tools do not always agree, and Google still drives a huge amount of search behavior. So today, we're going to look at how AI is changing search, what companies should realistically be investing in, and whether AI visibility is already delivering an ROI or should be viewed as a longer-term investment in brand discovery and authority. Today, I'm joined by three guests. Courtney is the head of SEO and AI visibility at Holland Adhaus. Is that correct, Courtney? Jack, the head of AI search and strategy at 829 Studios, and Alan is the director of sales at Hawk Digital. Thank you all for joining me today. So before I get into the debate, I do want them to understand a little bit more about each of you. Starting with Courtney, if you don't mind, please give us a little bit of background on who you are.
Sure. I've been doing SEO for about 10 years. I started out with a magazine and then moved over to the agency side. And I've worked on everything from $1 billion companies SEO down to very local niche businesses. So I have a lot of experience with a lot of different types of companies when it comes to SEO.
I'm excited to have that experience on. I think the perspective too of like a lot of small and medium businesses is always valued for a lot of our listeners. So thanks for joining us, Courtney. Jack, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My name is Jack Giblin. I'm the head of AI search and strategy at 829 Studios. I've been doing SEO for 10 years, was in-house for 5, and now I'm at the agency side for 5. So a good balance of both.
Yeah, great. We're happy to have you on and your perspective, especially with the title of AI search. We know those are the ones that we're excited for this podcast specifically. And Alan, we're having you come in with a little bit of the customer perspective from the sales side of things. Thanks for joining us. Mind, please give us a quick intro to who you are.
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the advertising and marketing space for the duration of my career, working with many top brands and agencies to develop omni-channel campaigns and really optimize their performance and their marketing. Most recently at Hawk Media, where working with dozens, if not hundreds of different clients to optimize their SEO and GEO exposure, increase their AI visibility ranking, making sure they're coming up in all the searches and also to drive traffic. So look forward to the conversation today with everyone.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I have a few questions for you guys today. These are very much group discussion questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask it and open it up to the group for discussion. And whoever feels like they want to jump in first, feel free to just attack it and we'll go from there. So my first question though is, I think, a big one and hopefully takes the whole podcast time. If we don't get to the rest of them, that's just fine. But is AI search delivering a measurable ROI today, or is direct revenue the wrong way to evaluate it at this stage? And I'll just do one more piece here. It feels like we're all trying to figure out how to use LLMs and AI for our own internal operations, but also from the customer perspective, and you can jump into either one of these, they're trying to spend their money on marketing to get an ROI to grow their business. And AI doesn't necessarily give them a lot of visibility on whether or not they're truly getting an ROI. So feel free to jump into either part of that conversation. I'm gonna open it up to the group now.
Yeah, I can set the table with this one. At A29, we currently believe that AI search is still in its infancy, right? It's an emerging discovery layer. You can measure visibility, influence, referral quality, things like that. But last click attribution is still not there on these platforms. So we know that people are using them, right? Like Google I/O, last month, there's over 1 billion active users on AI mode. So it's popular. It's just hard to see, are they actually coming to your website? Yes, you can measure the referral traffic, but a lot of AI search is just influence. And it brings us back to like classic marketing. How do you measure influence? Like billboard, eyes on a billboard, right?
Why would I even want to measure that? I want revenue for my company. I'm
Exactly.
going to be the client perspective here, right? I've had this, Courtney and Alan, feel free to jump in, but I've had a lot of companies talk about ROI as how they try to generate value for their customers. And more recently, I've had agencies jump on that disagreed with that and said that if you're trying to give ROI, it feels very short term, and marketing is more of an investment in like a bigger, broader picture. But it's not as transparent about ROI for that in that situation. So I want to know from the AI side of things, do you believe that it should be tracked to an ROI, or do you believe that it is a bigger picture and investing in the future of your company?
I feel like you should always have that growth conversation, and that should always drive any decision, whatever marketing channel you're using. I think that it does get a little tricky when you bring up AI search because they all want to appear. What I try to bring them back to is being cited is not the same as being chosen. I feel like some SEO gurus said that at some point, but I feel if you can integrate it as part of a bigger SEO service that you're providing, then I think that they're more willing to see it as a growth channel, maybe not as instantaneous as some other avenues, but that's really what I try to do. I try to bring it back to where do you need to grow your business? Let's get you out there. Let's start building up your brand and building up your expertise so you are being cited. And I will say that right now, I think is a great time for local and regional businesses to capture some AI citations and mentions when people are searching geographically, right? Like, I need so-and-so in Cincinnati. The general prompts, you're not going to win those. I mean, there's giant, huge companies that have been investing in SEO for a long time. They have a big, huge web presence. But for my local and regional clients, I always tell them now is a really, really good time to get in and build up some expertise at the local and regional level, because the big guys aren't playing in that sandbox and you are.
Yeah, I think to take on that, I think based on my experience in the last 18 months, really taking a deep granular dive, I think this is a threshold moment in marketing. If we back up to, maybe I don't know how long ago that the telephone was created, but having a telephone, having a website, now being optimized for AI-driven search queries, GEO, AEO, whatever you want to call it, it's paramount. And I think if you're not actively optimizing for that and getting your company in position to be one of the usually top 3 recommended companies in a intent-driven search, you are completely behind the 8 ball and you don't exist. We know that Google has publicly come out and said that keywords are dying. And if you even do searches on Google now, you'll see oftentimes the Google AI overview will come up first before the paid keyword searches. And then even if you look on the sidebar, which I thought this was like a paid thing, that's also AI driven searches. So if you don't come up, if you're not optimized, you don't exist. And if it's from a direct response or an attribution or an e-commerce company or brand market share, I would be full throttle ahead investing in making sure you've got what you need.
I feel like it's like back when SEO was kind of the big thing, right? And there were plenty of businesses not really investing in it. And then they tried to catch up and tried to get ranked and tried, all this stuff. And they ended up having to spend more money in the long run to try to get where their competitors were who had been investing in SEO more from the beginning and longer.
Yeah, so SEO, as we know, everybody wanted to be on the front page. We were focusing on keyword searches. And then the early companies understood that and they ranked high. Then when people understand how it happens, how the algorithm works, then we started investing in specific keywords, and then keywords got priced out because that's where you're looking at the ROI. If you're paying so much for a keyword that your cost per acquisition is too much, you're screwed. Now we are at kind of still in the early days where companies can proactively get ahead of the game, get ranked, get the AI engines we look for EEAT, experience, expertise, trust and authority. So you have to build that website up. You have to get your citations. You have to get your backlinks. You have to have the great content, have both the questions and the answers within the content on your website. And so all this stuff takes time, and it takes time to get your AI visibility ranking up. So now is the time, or last year was the time. So if this is something that you want to do, you want to grow your company, you want to drive sales, this is where you need to be doing.
Sounds a lot like the real estate grab, right? Like that there's limited space on there and everyone's trying to claim it first. Going back to like the ROI conversation then, I mean, this has been a problem in the SEO industry forever. Like we tell someone, hey, this is going to take you 6 to 9 months to get ranked. I have a family member that I've had this conversation with for a new business. We're 4 months in. And just yesterday, I had the conversation with them where they say, we're failing. This isn't working. I'm like, we're doing way ahead. Like we're way ahead of the normal curve here. We need to start like building more. We're doing a great job. This takes time. But without that ROI, there's that lack of you're impatient. You want it now. When it comes to AI rankings, we talk about optimizing for it, but this is where it gets a little messy in the industry, is that what does optimizing for it truly mean? In many cases, it's the standard SEO practices that a lot of companies have delivered for the past few years. And Alan, you touched on a few things there, but do we really feel like optimizing for AI is different than a really modern SEO campaign? Or is it just a rebrand?
Best practice for SEO are paramount as a foundation for your AI optimization. So you can't have great AI or AI visibility without the foundational, the metadata, the schema coding, all the stuff that helps you rank is still important. Certainly even traditional search is still more prevalent than AI search, but you have to have a good SEO foundation. And then what you really want to focus on is content. Content is the secret sauce, and how it's structured and also understanding how the LLMs work, because they know the LLM or your ChatGPT, your Grok, your Perplexity, they want to find you the best answer to your question. So you have to understand your target audience. So they're your personas. So you want to anticipate all the type of queries that they're going to be asking when they're in intent or when they're purchasing your type of product. So you have both those questions and those answers on your website, and then structure it with like semantic triples, the way LLM uses with the subject, predicate, and objective, where making it easy, making your website or the beacon for the answer. And that's a very 20,000 foot thing, but that's how, we've had success working with that and what we're really seeing results.
Yeah. On our side too, we're seeing that a lot of SEO is foundational to ranking in AI search. But again, it's taking what you're doing in SEO to the next level, right? And then it's taking it from, are we doing this from a performance marketing play? And should we start looking at things from a brand marketing perspective? Making sure that the brand is understood on these third-party sites like Reddit, all of these other citation sources. How can we, for lack of a better word, like reverse engineer those citation sources? How do we get involved in those? How do we make sure that our data is actually accessible on the web as well? So like we're experimenting with like agents, MDs, skills, markdown files, OKF, that's Google's open knowledge format. That's a great opportunity as well to make sure that your site is actually indexable to these AI agents as well. So there's more to it than just, traditional SEO. And just taking a step back too, this change feels a lot different than other changes in SEO. So there was like AMP pages and things like that. Those things were going to drastically change the industry. This feels different this time, right? And there's a lot of hype going around, but the way people search has changed. We can see it in the data. We can see it in our traffic and our metrics. So positioning like how we do AI search, it has to be different. And what I mean by different is we've done SEO in the past. We've all done SEO here for like 10 years. I think a lot of agencies were getting complacent with an old strategy where they're just creating like thin content, blogs and links. Here we go, right? That doesn't work anymore. It's abundantly clear that that doesn't work anymore. So we have to do more than just content and links. And that is why I think agencies should be able to charge more for AI search editions, right? I think SEO should be included, but I think it should be given more value, right? Because now this is new skill sets that people have to learn. We have to optimize for different services. We have to then measure those services. We then have to
I want to jump in
measure
here, Jack. I want to challenge something I heard there, because
Yeah.
we do backlinks as a company, and so we see a lot of the case studies from the partners we work with. And one thing that you said, talking about the evolution of SEO, I think was like really, really good to talk about it. Like, it is SEO, but done at a completely different level to make sure that AI is going to get you there. And Courtney, touching on something you said, there's a big difference between being cited in AI, like in LLMs, and actually being like traffic being generated for you. One thing we saw recently was the brand mentions aspect of link building that's going on today, where it's not necessarily a do follow link, but it's a no follow link. And it's simply mentioning the brand. Those are so valuable in recognition for your brand online. But the move that we've seen be really successful is being just leveling up the content and knowing what people are searching for and finding the hole that no other person is filling, which is exactly the same type of comment we would use for SEO, but the strategy being completely different through brand mentions and not the traditional backlink, and generating like traffic from providing the solution. A lot like Alan, what you've already touched on, is like generating the true answer for, hey, who do I contact for this specific problem in the industry? And your company can get so specific about it today, which I think is where we're talking about way more work being involved in it than is done in the past. And then also providing a solution that's not already accessible to everyone on the LLM model already. So your company is actually trying to create something that's new or solve a problem that hasn't been traditionally solved through content already. So to talk about that in depth more, I want to ask you guys about the content generation side of things, because this is becoming, I think, the new version of SEO. It's almost just content production, like your now content teams. How is your company going about producing content in a world where everyone's trying to leverage the tools to create more of the same? How are you guys creating content that's actually differentiates your customer?
I think that's where it's so critical to understand your ICPs, understand what their pain points are. I think that, for years, SEOs and people at companies that are handling marketing or SEO in-house, we got away with publishing kind of just like general info content, right? And it's like that just it's been done. It's been
Jack's blogs. I think that's actually what you were probably referring to, Jack. The blogs that you landed on and they weren't anywhere close to answering your question, right?
Right. And so that's where, and it's difficult. I get it, especially with some of the local and regional clients that I work with. You have got to tap into your experts. You've got to have that. What sets your company apart? And it's the people, it's the experts that you have in-house that can answer very, very niche questions. And it's challenging sometimes because, especially like, with a healthcare client, if they're local or regional, they may only have one person or two people managing their marketing. And so it's kind of difficult, but it's so imperative to like get a doctor's opinion on something, right? And even if it's just, hey, you know what, I'm going to interview you for 10 minutes and then you can take that information and come up with all kinds of content, but you have that very almost personalized spin on something and how you as the company solve it. And you're not going to get anywhere with general knowledge blogs. So that's where I just really have our clients take a second. Let's talk about your audience, because what are we trying to do? Ultimately, again, we're trying to grow your company. We're trying to give you some ROI. So it really starts with having, I always say SEO is a team effort. It truly is. And really having everybody on board and understanding what's at stake. And I don't know about Alan and Jack, but I feel like a lot of my job is just educating, educating clients or educating in-house, even with the agency. And so I just, I feel like that it's really, really important to get people to understand how important it is to get those experts to weigh in on things.
I think your approach to content is spot on. Getting that first party data information, those sources, that's key to good content, right? We're trying to find ways to differentiate ourselves, because if anyone could go onto ChatGPT and, prompt a blog, it's base level, right? So what I've even been hearing is like, ask your client to read 2 different versions of a blog, read their blog, read their competitor's blog, block out the heading. Can they tell the difference? Is it them or their competitor?
That's great.
If not, it's not there, right? It's not good enough. So the bar has been raised greatly.
I like that. I don't know if I've heard that before, but take the blind taste test and see if you can actually tell who's who.
Is it Coke or Pepsi?
I've been using it for like financial stuff. Like I've uploaded a lot of the context so I can make financial decisions. And I've been fascinated that even in that, it doesn't necessarily just do the math. It wants to understand the psychology of like why you're trying to make a decision and guide you to a decision that will like align with you as an individual. And I feel like that's how that's happening with the search for your customer in LLMs. If they're providing a medical solution, does the medical practice operate in the same way that, I don't know, the ethics, the strategies, the opinions, they're like, do they align with the individual and the context the LLM has for the individual? And that's where I feel like adding a flavor or an opinion to your blogs is so fascinating today, because it's connecting things far more than the basic math equation. It's trying to connect people at an emotional state. I think that's really cool. Back to Alan, you kind of talked about AI strategy being different than traditional SEO. I want to know, do you think that the budgets are independent, or do you think that it's one budget that gets split into both? Should people be spending and investing in AI search separate than their traditional SEO?
Well, I don't know about the budgets, but I mean, the team that does the AI should also be doing the SEO. Those should be hand in hand. They should be paramount and working together as the same people, because it's too closely related. And if one team goes in one direction, the other team goes in the other direction. Also, the point was made, just like any other campaign, you have to define what success is and what your KPIs are before you start creating content. Are you number one in the shoe category? Do you want to stay there? Or are you introducing a new product? You really want to go after hiking boots, something like that. All that has to do with the content. And then, getting granular into it. Not just what type, would case studies work out great here? Would a listicle work out great with top 10 lists? It all depends on what are your objectives. And then really, as was mentioned before, you have to kind of take the bull by the horns and really manage expectations. Let your client know this is not an on and off switch. This is going to take some time. And you have to continue doing it. It's like working out. It's not like you go to the gym one time, I'm in great shape. No, this is an ongoing process that's not going to change. And you have to completely not only adapt with your market, adapt with your clients, and then as the algorithms change. Jack, you touched on this early, like in October of last year. I don't know if it was ChatGPT or who, but they deranked the importance of Reddit. And it was a huge problem. And so people were ranking up because of their Reddit things, but then they turned it back on. So that's another thing. It's not just what's on your website. YouTube is huge for being ranked in AI visibility right now. YouTube's videos are sourced 300 times more than any other video platform. Here's a caveat, is that AI currently doesn't understand the transcript. It can read the headlines, it can read what's in the summary, but it doesn't know what's being said. So having the transcript of that YouTube on your website and within the YouTube will help you rank. Reddit is huge. Yelp is huge. And then also PR. Even if you're putting out a PR break on a digital wire, even if it doesn't get picked up by a publisher or a media company or a thing, AI can still see that. So even that's kind of a cool little hack, where if you have public PR releases on a digital distribution platform, even if it doesn't get picked up, AI can still see that. So it's really understanding the whole holistic ecosystem of what's going on right now, getting your arms around it and coming up with a plan. And I think that's the importance of having a good partner, either in-house or from an agency perspective.
Yeah. To piggyback off that, I think the SEO team or the AI team should be, combined. At A29, we have, AI operators. We've got SEO operators, because there's just so much going on in AI search. We have to have dedicated people on this. But but we will not start an account in AI unless they're doing SEO already, or at least have a foundation in SEO. They need to have the fundamentals done. Then you can go do the fun AI stuff.
Feels like there's probably some great analogies for why that would be a terrible attempt to do
Correct.
AI without it.
If you back up real quick, I've worked within website development as well. Sometimes people want just to get going. We want a one-page scroller. But if you don't have any place to put content, then you're going to start your business off driving to a URL on a website that's already archaic and not useful. So you're going to need to invest in something, maybe a WordPress or something where it has the functionality to add content and to play into the future. Because if you can't put content on there, you're already behind the eight ball.
And then we're actually, I think PR is a great lever, something that I don't think a lot of brands are touching yet in terms of like GEO. We've developed some workflows where we're actually doing like keyword research or prompt research, and then we're going out and we're trying to like target certain firms that have like a high citation ranking or high authority in certain industries. And a really good secret is follow the money in AI. So look at like OpenAI. Who do they have deals with for publishing and training data? I believe Condé Nast has a deal with ChatGPT, right? So if I'm a travel company and I want to get in on get cited, get in the training sets, I pitched Condé Nast. Hey, write an article about my brand, right? That's how you get in. And that's a totally underutilized way to do AI search or even think about AI search. And what you can also do is you can use tools like Profound. I think like Scrunch Peak, they all do this, but you can put those on a watch list. So like if you get your article pitched, measure it on a watch list and look at those citations over time. And then that's a great way to report ROI as well. Because you can say, hey, we pitched this article got mentioned by ChatGPT, 50, 60 times. We're seeing actual results in LLMs.
I want to touch on, so the PR side of it I find really fascinating because it comes back to something else that I think has been a huge factor in results today, which is freshness. And it seems like with PR, it's another modern version of link building, right? So you're generating links to authoritative sites, and that content that's relevant in a PR release is less relevant 6 months from now, a year later. It's all just like dating. So. And going back to, again, something that Alan said, which was like YouTube and other things, it seems like the search algorithm is wanting to make sure that you're actually in business today. And there's the importance of ongoing SEO versus a company that paid for SEO, got it going and did well for a year and thought, hey, we're done. We did our SEO. So what factor is freshness playing in this that you guys are understanding? How important is the consistency or the recency of your content creation?
The ranking of content by LLMs dramatically drops off after 12 months. So if you had a great press release that went viral or whatever, got picked up everywhere, and it's now 18 months old, you need to refresh it. And you can cite the dates, they can see that. But yeah, it needs to be recent. Otherwise, it decreases in its ranking.
Well, and I always remind clients too, you want to control the narrative, right? So, I mean, that's why freshness plays such a big role too, because if you're not controlling the narrative, then your competitor is. So I think it's important to point out that, you need the freshness aspect of things for that very reason.
Yeah. One thing that I always push for is deadweight audits on sites. So what can we cut, right? You can use the blind header test. Does this stand out? If not, rework it. Is it getting impressions in Search Console? If it has less than 10 in the last year, rework it, right? Time to update. And that's a great opportunity as well. I think, net new content is great, but a lot of brands, particularly on the enterprise side, they have a ton of content to work with already.
And I will say, we're saying freshness, but at the same time, as we know, Google really values that older posts, that have been around a long time and established. So it is kind of that fine line between the freshness with the kind of established. So to your point, I mean, it seems like that a lot of clients just want to keep putting stuff on there. And so I always like to do a content audit and say, hey, if we just do this, this, and this to this post that's been around since 2021. It's really gonna help with your rankings, and it's gonna help with your mentions. It's fresh in that sense, because you're updating it with new content, but it's still that established URL or whatever.
What needs to happen in AI search for it to become a true performance channel?
I think that happened about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago. I definitely think it's a performance channel. If you are a roofing company because we have to remember that consumers are developing a relationship with their AI of choice, whether it be Claude, whether it be ChatGPT, whatever. They're asking stuff. They're assuming both authority and unbiasedness when they get an answer. So if I say, hey, I'm an HOA president, I have 24 units, I need to put new roofs on, recommend the best roofer with the best rates in my area. You get that answer, and that's it. That's zero click through. They're going with that because they trust that. So that's performance as it gets. And if I'm sure agencies charge all different types for the SEO GEO service, but a roof is like $20,000 at the very minimum. So all you have to do, that's ROI right there. You get one sale per month because you invested maybe $4,000 in your agency to do all your SEO GEO. You've already paid for itself. And this is not getting any less. The Gen Z is almost all AI driven now. So if you want to future-proof your company, if you want to exist, you have to do it. And that's about as performance as it gets. So if you have a bean counter that want to be bullish and doesn't see what's right in front of them, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, but don't you feel like a lot of those best of, they come from those directories? And so I feel like clients sometimes feel like they can't really get on those lists in order to get that business because it's citing from one of those larger directories. And I'm just wondering how do they compete with those big websites that, Google loves to cite them, and so does AI. So I'm just wondering if there's not more that they would need to do in order to get on that best of list.
How does a small company compete with a large company that can pay to play or everything else to get on those listicles?
I don't know if the LLMs are looking at the best of list, but what is the best answer to the query? So we worked with an air purification company that wasn't even ranking, had 0% ranking. And by optimizing with content, and we got them to number 2 in the entire category above Dyson. So Dyson had thousands of pages of more content on their website, but because it wasn't indexed properly, we were able to catapult that company above this. So it's a very lean in. It's not easy. You have to know what you're doing, but that's the whole point. Now's the time where we can take a company and get them to the number 1 or number 2 position and really move the needle for them, really get the market share, and then they can put their heels in the ground and then take that and grow with it. But if you wait until your competition is already optimized, already has the content, already has the team in place, I mean, that's going to be a huge uphill battle.
I think one way to answer your question too, Courtney, is look at how you can differentiate that content, right? So let's try, air purification filters near me or something like that, right? What can we create so what I would do is look at the citations that came out from there. Okay. What are the common denominators between those pages that are cited? What are we missing? What's our unique spin that we can put on this? Does our filter have something different, right? And then I would also look at sentiment across those brands. What's the common sentiment around their filters in general? Or maybe your top competitor? Is it the price product, right? Is it certain features? What can we write about that they're missing? And then let's start querying the AI for different questions that are highly specific about that. So is it good for people with allergies? Is it good for certain skin conditions, right? Those are the little niches that the AI models love because we know that prompts and the way people search, it's using context, historical context. So Gen Z, yes, is developing relationships with AI models. They're telling it their deepest, darkest secrets, but they're also telling it their medical information. So like, I'm allergic to dust and I have asthma. What's the best filter for me? I'm also like very active and I'm a light sleeper too. So I need a filter that's quiet. So how do you optimize for quiet air filter near me that is hypoallergenic, certified HEPA filter, and is quiet, good for sleeping, right? That's a huge keyword. So the more context that you add to your content, the better you'll rank. So a lot of large brands have made tons of content hubs trying to outrank those like top level terms, but there's still niches and small pieces of content that you could create. And that's likely what Alan and his team did, right? To get there. So there's a huge opportunity right now in LLMs because we know that the ranking factors are also a little different. And another thing to just dial back is like in SEO, the ranking factors are like rule of law at this point. We know what to do. It's the same thing every time. Content and links. Generally, when you boil it all down, it's content and links, right?
The term that comes to mind is authority generates authority too. Like, especially when you're small, like having your like an opinion or credibility to your statement and having it be quoted from you versus like a content piece that's been produced at scale. Even if theirs addresses the question, man, it's better to quote a doctor of something and then to share like the website's random generic content. I think that's a fun part of I think it's fun about being small. You can really personalize every aspect. I think that authority, even if it could be used against you, authority generates authority. Maybe the giant companies have their own authority, right? But that personalized authority and reviews and all the stuff that makes a small company so trusted, I think that's where it's so fun. I do have one more question for the three of you, and it's more like I want you to predict the future for me. And Alan, if you have a comment you want to share before I throw out the last question, go ahead.
I would just say that, the goal with the optimization for AI is to prevent the perception to the LLM that you are the best. Reality doesn't matter when LLMs. It's like, what is the information telling them? No, seriously, we worked with a client.
I think it's funny because it's true. Yeah.
Very quickly, there was a printer company. They had like $25,000 printers. They were like the most innovative, best printers in the world. Seriously. But there was other overseas companies with making crap, but because they were optimized, they were coming up for all these search queries. So you can use third-party tools as well, where you can just put in a URL. It'll pull down all of your personas, all of the potential questions that your personas are asking, and then rank you for each question, each persona on each LLM, and suddenly it takes away the guesswork. And then as you work and grow in an agency, you can rerun that report and see how it's growing. Ahrefs is great with that as well for citations. So there's a lot of cool tools that out there if you know what you're doing, and you can really be strategic with it and really make a difference for a company. I think that's what the most exciting thing is, when you can grow and help a company really get to the top of their category, and it's pretty rewarding.
Just to add on to like just a quick piece to that thought of should this be its own optimization service. So SEO, we have optimization strategies. It's set in stone. There's like the 10 commandments of SEO. We know what to do. For AI search, we know maybe 60, 70, 80% of that, but there's still 20%, 30% that we still don't really know how to actually optimize for it yet. We know that there are all these ranking factors, but I wouldn't say that we know every single way to do it yet. So there's a huge part of like exploration, right, that we still need to uncover for these.
Alan, you touched on something that I think is funny, that you can kind of cheat the system. I don't know if cheat's the right word, but game the system. Right? Like you can make yourself rank by doing the right style of SEO. I think what I'm so excited about LLMs and how they're truly trying to provide, and I believe this, they're truly trying to provide the best answer. That's what makes them useful and what makes people come back. I'm optimistic that if you're a small company and you provide the best service, you just need to be clear about how you're providing the best service and you'll get cited. Like, I think that that's what's so exciting to me about the tools, is them trying harder to find out which contractor truly is the best based on reviews, based on all kinds of success signals that they might see across the internet, and then recommend them based on their truth and what they're actually seeing. Whether or not it's the hard truth or they've just done a really good job with their marketing online is still a question that you can challenge yourself to not just trust the answer with AIs. But to take this to my final question, marketing has changed a lot over the last year and a half. SEO, ads, social media, I feel like they all used to be different silos. And we've seen a lot of marketing companies that are now bringing all their context into Notebook LM or whatever other AI tool they can, so that these marketing channels can be brought together and have like a unified strategy for their brand. From the three of you, where do you predict more the marketing changing the most over the next 2 years? What do you think are strategies that are going to be dropped off or falling behind, and where do you think people will invest more of their time over the next 2 years? And understand, if you want a second to answer it, I'm just asking you to predict the future of marketing over the next 2 years. So take your time.
Yeah. I think brands need to become better than the average of averages. So how LLMs work, right? They crawl the web, they aggregate all the information, they create the average. They always spit out the average response, right? Because it's stochastic, right? They're crawling their information, spitting out what you would like to hear, and they're giving you that average. Marketing and brands, if we're all putting all of our information into LLMs, we're going to get the average answer every time. So we have to always be above that average. We have to be thinking outside the box, because brands are going to soon get sort of that same answer. And that's kind of like that AI slop thing that people are talking about, right? If you just keep querying and making sort of like the same answers and not adding unique perspective to your content, to your brand, to what you're trying to say, it will just blend in with everyone else.
Courtney and Alan, do you want to take a stab at this, or should we wrap up and let you maybe draft a response on LinkedIn back for after the release?
That is a tough question to answer. I feel like authenticity is going to be more important than I think Gen Z is really big on it right now. So I think, again, it goes back to reviews. What other people are saying about your brand is going to become increasingly important. It is very important now. It was important a long time ago, but it's just going to keep growing, I think, to make sure that you're seen as a very trustworthy, transparent company, and putting the tools in place to make sure that you're capturing that. You can say all day long how great you are, but it really is mattering what other people are saying about you. And that's why I feel like digital PR is just going to get more and more and more important.
I was privileged to have the co-founder of Fractal on the podcast this week, and that conversation came up. And one of the things I took away was that you should stop trying to be the hero of the story, especially from like a PR side of things. Like, stop bragging about what you're doing and try to be a part of the story that's happening around you. And it felt like such a more authentic way of interacting with your customer, rather than what I think was the traditional blog model back, 5 years ago, which was like, I'm awesome for these things. And you send out 40 blogs saying why you're the greatest. I like that a lot, the authenticity. Alan, are you going to take a stab at this one?
I'll take a quick stab at it and touch a little bit about what Jack said. I think as we get advanced, as everything evolves, we need to focus on the core tenets of marketing: great engagement and great creative. And everybody touched on this a bit. It's like bringing value to your customers, bringing them talking with them, not at them. And so what we're seeing right now is a huge automation in creative and campaigns, where people are setting it up and you have AI changing the headlines, changing creative, Well, if everyone's doing that, then everything's going to look the same. So make sure that you have a human be the first touch point and the last touch point whenever possible. And make sure that you still are differentiating. Otherwise, you're just going to be bland, you're going to be vanilla, and you're not going to have any unique selling point. So make sure your brand exudes the DNA of your company, what you're all about. Talk with your consumer, provide them value, be part of their interest, be part of their life, and not just be an ad. So that's my takeaway.
I love that you said vanilla, because when I visualize this, I imagine myself in a grocery store aisle and every flavor of ice cream is vanilla. And I'm just walking down hoping that there's something different. And finally you see it and you're like, that's the one for me. Everything else didn't matter. You hardly even see it.
Well, there's two things very quickly that supports what I just said. Is number one, REI just had a ad campaign that came out where they had handlebars on the seat of the bike. So that was obviously an AI hallucination or mess up, whatever. And then I don't know, I think it was a shoe company, but they did an ad with Messi in it, and on his shoes, Messi was spelled wrong. So that's why we need to still not have the humans in the world, because there's millions of dollar campaigns going out there, and you spell Messi is your spokesperson, you spell his name wrong, you just lost all credibility to that target audience.
It reminds me of the Nike pitch to Stephen Curry, where they called him Stephen Curry instead of Stephen Curry, and you're like, you don't even get the name right, you don't get the business, guys. Sorry. Well, I appreciate you guys joining us for this episode of SEO On Air. I encourage anyone listening to follow our guests on LinkedIn, try to keep up on what you guys are doing. I appreciate you bringing your perspectives to this episode. Subscribe wherever you're listening. This episode was brought to you by Stan Ventures. Thanks for joining us, Jack, Courtney, and Alan. Have a great day.